are live. Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We have
Hello.
Clayton back. I am Jill.
I'm Shanna.
And we're
And
the
I'm the
Detox
replacement
girls.
for Dr. Rom.
Yeah.
Yes. So, good morning, everybody. Okay, here we go. We're so happy you're here. Today, we're going to talk about being sad, and we're going to talk about holidays and family and all the fun things coming up.
Yes.
So, before we get started, we are going to do the disclaimer. All right, so our disclaimer, the information provided in this presentation, any discussion, any posts, any comments are intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended for, nor should it be used as medical care or advice. It should not be used in formulating a diagnosis or medical treatment plan. It's not intended to diagnose, cure, treat, or prevent any illness or disease. Please contact your medical physician or practitioner with any medical questions or concerns. The information you're about to hear has not been evaluated by the FDA or any medical entity. And this presentation is for educational purposes only and may not be shared without consent from us, the Detox Girl.
There we go. Today's topic, SAD.
Yes, seasonal affective disorder.
Yep.
You know, the holidays are a perfect culmination for this.
That's why we did it. Help you guys out, give you some information, especially right now, this time of the year. It's not good.
It's suicide season. I mean, it's the way to look at it. And unfortunately, it's people want to kill themselves when they're around a lot of their family or if they're not around their family. So we want to talk about how to prevent that today, I think.
Yep.
I mean, the seasonal affective disorder is an interesting thing. I grew up in Southwest Washington, and seasonal affective disorder, I think, got its name from Seattle, right? Because it's overcast and it's gloomy all the time. But it's much, much bigger than that. You know, when you look at the bigger equation, and we're moving into the time of year, like I said, it is suicide season, unfortunately. So we were having the chat a couple days ago over what this means and how to really hit it. So thanks for letting me come back and hang out. I'm going to leave it to you guys.
Thank you for being here.
Always happy to have you here.
We're glad to have you back.
Yes. Okay, let's get started. So my dog is going to not cooperate today, even though the UPS man already came. Okay, so let's go through some signs of seasonal affective disorder. It can feel like depression, sadness, anxiety, lack of patience. Oh, welcome to the holidays. Irritability, fatigue, insomnia, difficulty concentrating, and a change in appetite, more or less. And who's most likely to be impacted from SAD? Women. I should have really put moms, but women. Right. But in particular, moms. This is a really stressful season for moms. Young people. And I will say from experience that I truly believe that those that are in like the 18-year-old range really struggle. You know, they feel like they're adults. They want to be adults. They don't understand that they're not, that they, age-wise they are adults, but that's that. They're still learning, they're still struggling, and they're trying to be independent and spread their wings, and it doesn't always work out. They have to learn some lessons. Those with a family history of depression, and those that live far away from the equator. Clayton was mentioning that.
Yes.
In a similar.
So we have lack of sunlight, which is what Clayton hit on in Seattle. It's also really big in Alaska, is lack of sunlight that gives you the natural vitamin D. Always remember, guys, we can go over this another time, but vitamin D is not a vitamin. It's actually a hormone. Which is why it's a catalyst for other hormones. So lack of sunlight, which is vitamin D and serotonin, because those are cyclical. If you're low in serotonin, you will not have vitamin D. Vitamin D helps synthesize serotonin back and forth. Shorter days and less sunlight during the winter months. Those that live further from the equator. Vitamin D is produced when your skin is exposed to the UV light. There's actually an enzyme on your skin that actually opens up your pores to accept the UV light from the sun, and also your eyes. So if you are in the sun and you have your eyes covered with sunglasses or glasses, your body will not synthesize very much vitamin D. So always try to do, 10, 15, 20 minutes without sunglasses on. Vitamin D is involved in the synthesis of serotonin and dopamine. Do you want to hit on that cyclical cycle, Clayton, real quick?
on the whole
vitamin
cycle.
D and how it so serotonin and dopamine.
Well, I think the key point is going back to all the conversations we've had for a while, right? Is you hear people talk about vitamin D deficiencies, which we are vitamin D deficient, which goes back to what you're talking about. One, we don't get enough sunlight, right? But also the key components that goes in that is due to being toxic that we don't metabolize sunlight.
Yep.
Right. And I mean, we can look at the calcification of the pineal gland, but as you're hitting on, the time changes in your circadian rhythm. And this is what was so important. All of these things are correlated, right? And they all tie together. And, like you hit on, they do make up this cycle. And you can say the little circle of happiness that goes along with the golden pill of happiness. But our ability to sleep, wake, all working through our circadian rhythm, which is the sun cycles, all corresponds to our ability to regenerate. And this is what's so crucial. Your happiness during the day directly correlates the amount of sleep and the quality of sleep that you're getting. In addition to how you're able to metabolize the vitamin D, how your melatonin production works. And you can look at some of the research that you can find on our YouTube channel done by Dr. Stefan Rao, who's a leading researcher in vitamin D. He's an immunologist, a virologist, and a specialist in vitamin D metabolism. And the important part to understand is like melatonin is and has been studied as a miracle treatment for COVID. Right. And it's really interesting because people think that, I need to go out and buy melatonin supplements. No, you don't. It's like going out to buy a bunch of vitamin D. Granted, you do need high quality vitamin D supplements to supplement what we're not getting, or what just the amount of sun in most instances that we're not getting. And it's funny that when you look at cultures that, have vast amounts of sun, right, and you can say California, Southern California and such, they're constantly in the sun. But if you go further south, you have happier people, you have healthier looking people, right? You go down to South America, you don't see as many fat people, right, as you do in the United States, right? Because they're outside, the sun makes you feel better. Or like I went to Washington State University, for school, and when my brother went to the University of Arizona for school, he was 3 years behind me. And I went to go visit my brother on campus in Tucson, Arizona. And I was like, wait a minute, is there like an admission requirement that it's only beautiful girls that are able to apply to school here? Because the sun does some stuff a little bit differently. And I'm like, man, if you look at the girls on campus at Washington State, they don't look like the girls on campus in Arizona. And part of it is how the environment affects us. But the key is what you do with your system, what you do with your body, how you handle this, right? Because while you've broken down these key components, they all have the same correlating factors. So what are you going to do to put your body in the position that it is able to process more vitamin D, that your pineal gland produces the right amounts or needed amounts of melatonin? And how do you start that process? Because stress, lifestyle, diet, environmental toxins inhibit us from producing the dopamine and the serotonin needed, just to feel amazing. Notice I didn't say good, or I didn't say well. Who wants to feel good and who wants to feel well when you can be freaking great, right? And honestly, it's a choice of a couple capsules. That's it. It is that simple. So how do you put yourself in that position? That's what we can look at. Well, hopefully that was sufficient, and I'm leading you guys because you guys are getting amazing at doing slides, and I just don't know where we're going quite yet.
Well, you covered this slide and the next slide and some additional slides, and that's okay. But
yes, you did.
When we were putting together all the things that contribute to SAD, you hit on a really good point, which is it all comes together. Each one of these things that we sort of have separate is actually not separate. They're all together. We just separated them into thoughts. Right. But every single one of them works together. And then when we were talking about sunlight and vitamin D, really, it's extremely helpful to think back to the way people lived before electricity. You went to bed when it got dark. You woke up with the sun. Your light at night was a fire. You didn't have these big fluorescent lights. You didn't have all the, the kitchen lights on and the, if you've got teenagers, the kitchen lights on and the living room lights on. You had a fire. And so there were the reds and the oranges, and they were calm, and your melatonin started to produce. And when you went to bed and the fire went out, it was pitch black. And that's how our bodies are supposed to work.
Yep.
And now we've got TVs and phones and computers and Wi-Fi, and wow, we could really go off on a tangent.
That's one thing, that the lights, whenever you're on your computer, if you're on within an hour or two of going to sleep, it actually decreases your body's ability to produce the melatonin. So that's a really good thing. Is sleep hygiene is something to really look at as well. Yeah. So we covered the circadian. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I want to hit. I don't mean to interrupt you, but to hit on what you just said as far as sleep hygiene, and it's really tweaking your biochemistry to know that your intention will dictate that process, and the dream state that is so needed that we don't get enough of is a matter of biochemistry as well. So if you don't remember the last time you actually had dreams, you can change that very, very simply. And if you want to be one who has lucid dreams, really, really lucid dreams, like I think it came through you guys. I had a testimonial from someone. She's like, I'm a lucid dreamer, but for the first time I had a dream and someone was kissing me on the lips and I could actually feel the touch on my lips. Yes. Like, okay, that's cool. But then she woke up and the dog was standing over her. Maybe not.
No Tilly? No,
it was not the Tilly dog. No, Tilly lays next to mom. She knows not to be on my side of the bed.
I love it.
That's awesome.
I don't know where we left off, but really, I think we pretty much covered everything on this
side. So we can, we got the circadian rhythm, neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, etc. Go ahead.
Right. So neurotransmitters, the lack of the ability to produce the neurotransmitters is due to a poorly functioning digestive system. So the gut, the heart, and the brain have a direct correlation with each other. You have to take care of the body in whole. I know a lot of times we have people that say, which one thing would you pick? I struggle with that answer. I can't see taking care of one part of your body and not the whole body. Our whole body is so toxic and needs love and support.
It's meant to operate together.
Yes. Yep. Right. That's why it's called the organ system.
Yep. Yeah, and that's why it's called a system.
Yes. Organ system. Right.
It's like there's a whole bunch of things that are interconnected. But you know what's really interesting? I think we were talking about this the other day. The disconnects that we have spiritually, right? In the way that this whole construct of, you could say, religion and spirituality has gone bad. Remember when they used to have organs in church and people would go to church to get healed? You know why they called them an organ? Because the frequencies coming from what was played actually healed your organs. It's where Rife technology came from, actually, but they didn't want that. So it's a matter of understanding that there's so many different ways you can play with your biochemistry. One of those things, and I think, is music. Whether you have white noise and playing at night, whatever that may be. Like in my house, I'm usually one that I sleep in the dark, and if it's quiet, I'm cool. But I've learned to adapt because the amazing one who sleeps next to me has to have the fan on constantly, and she has the fan on not to keep the room cool. She has the fan on so we have the noise of the fan. And you can play with that if you have meditation stuff that you're playing. Really, this is the thing, is you don't need a lot of noise. You can have something play really, really quietly, and your subconscious mind is going to pick up on all of it. There's so many different things that you can play with in addition to what we're hitting on. But that's
yes,
beauty of
that's what I do.
comes
I actually have my through the night, I keep my phone in the living room. I don't keep it in the bedroom, but I have it, even though I can't really hear it, I keep my phone on Bible readings throughout the night. So it's always reading something. And there's this guy from the UK that I really like his voice. So
I was going to say, you listen to Morgan Freeman?
No. But touching on the music with the organs, that's actually why the harp was played in the temple during the temple periods in the scripture. It was because there's a lot of stories in scripture about people being healed just from the harp music. We see that with Saul and King David.
And it's all frequency, and that's where some of these key components, when you look at neurotransmission, all come in, and the importance of different frequencies, how you can play with frequencies, the frequencies you can put into products. Crystals. And how that works in your pineal gland and how it works with the rest of your system. So I love the fact of what you put on here as far as low production of serotonin and dopamine with heavy metals, and like you look at arsenic and some people the trace mineral component, because of the conductivity of minerals and what's needed in the body. And as we at least I've seen, I think you guys have seen a little bit, companies that are selling different products for trace minerals and throwing in some extra heavy metals and things that you might not ideally want to be putting in your system, that you have to be very specific, but also understanding that there is a great level of simplicity that nature provides. And I'll give you guys a quick little anecdote because I'm talking a lot. Christina was having the conversation with someone last week. I think it was about it was about clean slate, and they were reading the bottle, and they said to her, well, the label is really simple. These are really simple ingredients: vitamin C, silica, and water. These are really simple. Or no, she said vitamin C, silica, and trace minerals and sea salt. These are really simple. And it's like, what? How is that going to be beneficial? And she's like, yeah, kind of like air and water. It's like,
right.
Noted.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So it's not just what the ingredients are; it's the quality and how they're put together, because that's what's really key. And the same thing that goes for your body. You can be around stuff, but you're not going to benefit from it. It's how you use it and how we're made to use it. I'm going to shut up for a minute.
It's all good.
No.
Okay. So the low production of serotonin and dopamine due to high heavy metal toxicity. And as Clayton was saying, so mercury and arsenic are two big ones. Mercury lowers dopamine. It transforms dopamine into a toxic compound. It causes neurodegeneration, which can lead to depression, fatigue, irritability, way more than that. Arsenic can mimic leukemia.
That's crazy to me. Yep.
That
mimic or create?
Well, I think both.
Both, and that's a really good point. I think there's a lot of people out there that maybe need that information. Contributes to cognitive dysfunction and mood issues and more, because arsenic is poison to the body.
It's rat poison, and it's one of those things that's been used for a long time to kill people. It's actually, like, historically, if you wanted to poison somebody, one of the best things to do. And if you want a really good idea of how toxic this stuff is and what it'll do to people, you can go on our YouTube channel, on the Root Brand YouTube channel. Just search Will Davis, WILLDAVIS. You can watch one of the interviews that I've done with Will. Will's one of my favorite projects of all time, because his ex-wife tried to kill him with it. And she poisoned him with arsenic. She tried to do it slowly initially. So it's kind of like if you watch one of my favorite movies, The Princess Bride, of how, he built up a tolerance to iocane powder, doing just a little bit every day. So you build up a tolerance. Will's ex-wife was poisoning him a little bit every day with arsenic. And then one night, after like a few months, just said she'd had enough and mega dosed him. Should have killed him, but he built up enough of a tolerance to it that it didn't kill him. So he went blind, deaf, and got leukemia to go along with the diabetes that he'd already had. And I mean, some people would probably choose death. But you know, through the hell that he lived through when we were introduced, watching his vision, hearing skin tone, muscle, lack of leukemia, a 60+% decrease in the amount of insulin he needed, all change over a short time of just cleaning up the mess, is something that shows that, look, arsenic, lead, aluminum, mercury, these are toxic heavy metals, and they are not good for you. There is no level of tolerance we have for them. You know, and granted, you know, some people will say, oh, they're organic. Let me give you a little point on organic heavy metals, right? And this goes for glyphosate as well, right? And this is what's really, really important is people, well, glyphosate's Roundup, it's weed poisoning, and it gives plants AIDS. Yeah, it does the same thing to you. That's why you have a leaky gut. But if you're talking about environmental exposure to heavy metals or environmental exposure to glyphosate, where would you find glyphosate? Well, it's in your in the plant matter. It's in the soil. So it's in, even if they're not spraying it, it's in the water supply, it's in the soil, it's in your plants. But when you're looking at chelated minerals and chelated glyphosate, this would be the organic versions of mercury, the organic versions of arsenic, right? Where would you find those? Where are you going to find a lot of mercury in fish, right? Because the rain's dumping it in the oceans, and the whole biosphere in the ocean is loaded with mercury. Yeah. Predatory fish are loaded with mercury. Those are the ones we like to eat. We don't eat a lot of plankton. We love tuna. Tuna's at the top of the food chain with the dolphins and the sharks. We don't eat dolphin and shark. Why? Because dolphins are like people. They're amazing. They're smarter than us, so we leave them out. But we know sharks are full of mercury. So are tuna, right? But in our land, what things do we see that are loaded with these chelated metals? Well, instead of antibiotics, because you don't want antibiotics given to the chicken that you eat, because you know antibiotics are bad. So what did they do instead? They gave them arsenic. So you have chelated arsenic, you know, that is organic arsenic, and those chickens are eating corn and different stuff that's sprayed with glyphosate. So the glyphosate gets into the chickens, it's chelated, it's in their tissue. So what happens when you eat the chicken, or if you're getting bone broth, things made from chicken, or if you're getting collagen from chicken bones, that already has these chelated metals and chelated toxins in it, what does that mean? It doesn't mean they're good for you. It means they're more bioavailable and they're actually worse for you. And you don't want that exposure. So it's key to understand what's going on in your environment, what's around you, and how these things have an effect on your system. Because you've got to get this stuff out. And if, heaven forbid, you've been consuming products that are additionally loaded with like lead and arsenic, you need to do some stuff to start getting that out. Because here's the key thing with lead and arsenic and mercury. Taking a little bit now won't kill you immediately, right? They build up in your system and they create chronic issues. If you get enough at once, they can kill you. But what the pet cow effect, which is a law of physics that was created in 1972, looking at radioactive isotopes and their exposure, is something that leads into the understanding of environmental toxin exposure. One large dose is actually not as bad as getting a little bit every day.
We're learning about that in physics right now.
Thousands of times more deadly. And so you have to really look at your lifestyle, where you are, where you live, what you're eating, what you're breathing, what you're drinking. A lot of these things you can't control. But you have to do things to get this stuff out. And if you can do that, then the rest of your environment is not so bad and you don't have to be so sad.
I am going to pop in here and get the other question that we have asked all the time answered, which is, how long do I need to detox? How long do I need to support my body? How long do I need to work on my digestive health? I think Clayton just answered that question.
Well, honestly, I mean, it comes down to a question. It comes down to a question of quality, right? Right? How long do you want your years to be quality? When do you want your quality of life to drop off and fall off a cliff, right? And go, I prefer to be sick and demented and intolerable at 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 or 90 or 110? Where do you want to be miserable? When do you want death to be the better option than living? Right? That's the choice. And then most people will go, well, no, I want to be amazing my entire life. Great. Then it's probably something that you'll stop the day that you die. And the goal is to die old as young as possible.
Right.
That's really the dictator. So the question is, well, how long do you want to be young? Well, I want to be young as long as possible. Okay, then this is something that you don't stop, right? Because and this is what's really crucial when we look at, the construct of the Trinity. People ask that question, so, well, how long do I do this? I'm like, until you die. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And that's just it. It's like, well, why would I? When you look at the environmental aspects and the detoxification standpoint, you go, okay, theoretically, if we're able to clean up this entire system, I mean, completely clean it out, real clean slate, right? Then what? Do you stop and then every day you start to build up, more toxins? Because if you did that, here's a little secret, and I've been able to experience this over the 16 years I've done this because I've got a little more experience with most. The more you clean up your system, the more environmentally intolerant you become. Your body becomes more aware of what's around you because its defense mechanisms improve. So if you're drinking really poor water, if you're around really bad air,
Yeah.
This just in, that stuff is not going to stop. It's probably going to get worse over time because we're in this really unique spiritual shift where there are some really bad people that want to kill you. And they're doing as much as they can right now to kill as many people as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you going to do to mitigate that process? And do you want to be a victim or do you want to be amazing? And how long do you want to be amazing?
Yes. That's really good because I know that the better I get, the more susceptible to things I am. I have a lot of friends and family that they just say they're like, okay, well, Shanna, eat it or drink it or whatever, because if she won't, then I won't, because they're not as sensitive to it as I am because I'm a little further on in my journey. And they kind of use that as a gauge. But I think there's something also that it's kind of on the slide, but not in this way. So I just want to say it. It also comes down to how this has all been put together to tear us apart and to tear us down to cause these things to happen. Like we have here, tryptophan is a precursor to serotonin. So what are they doing? They're not just lowering our serotonin. They're actually trying to deplete the gut from being able to accept the amino acids and everything that it needs to actually put serotonin together. And then you have serotonin supplements that can be not good for you because you can become serotonin toxic. And if you have too much, because a lot of it is synthetic, and it's instead of supplementing your body with something because your body can't make it, you need to support the body to make it, which is what they've done, is caused us not to be able to make the, they've broken down the vitamin D synthesis structure. They've broken down the ability to have tryptophan or anything into the serotonin. And it just creates a cascading effect. I hope that makes sense.
Well, and you also, then you get into the point of, someone's like, I don't feel well. And then you go to your doctor and they're like, I'm going to prescribe you some SSRIs. Oh, it's like, you're going to give me serotonin reuptake inhibitors?
Yep.
What? They're like, well, you know what? If you don't feel good. So, and this is the important part with being sad, and I think we can hit on, because Jill had an amazing experience the last couple of days, and hopefully she'll be open to talk about this a little bit. But you have to understand, in the programming side of things, in the programming side of the world, they're like, well, you go to somebody and you're like, well, I don't feel good, or I feel depressed, or I'm not happy. And they're like, great, let me give you something so you don't feel anything.
Yeah.
And you go,
yeah, you don't feel the good or the
that's
bad.
not what I wanted.
Right.
But
so if you're taking those medications, you have to remember that they might help you to not feel sad, but they also help you to not feel happy. You are just even keel and you feel nothing. No one wants to feel nothing.
Pull your hair out.
Right. Well, let's go back to what Clayton said. Don't you want to feel amazing? I don't want to feel nothing. That's not the life I want to lead.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's all good.
Yeah. Okay. So this is just a little bit of back knowledge, and Shannon was starting to hit on it. Tryptophan is the precursor for serotonin. Serotonin is the precursor to melatonin. This is where the whole body works together. It's not just one thing. Synthetic tryptophan, synthetic serotonin, synthetic melatonin. You really just want your body to produce its own. That is the best way you're going to be successful in your feelings.
Right.
Endogenous.
Oh, endogenous. Yes.
It is such a great word, and people go, huh? It's like, let this amazing mechanism produce what you need.
Right.
Put gasoline in your car and start it and drive it. Don't try to push the damn thing. It's not made for that.
That's a great analogy. Honestly, that's a great analogy. Okay, the pineal gland, which we touched on a little bit, but I'm just going to read through here really quickly. The pineal gland synthesizes and secretes melatonin mainly at night, so that's where the darkness needs to be. It's the light center of the brain. Melatonin is dependent on darkness. It stops producing in the morning with the sunlight. Again, we're back to before electricity. That's the intent of the sun. It's the receptor for both dopamine and serotonin, and fluoride calcifies the pineal gland, slowing down the brain function and inhibits melatonin. So,
yes,
clean slate. Clean slate will help to decalcify the pineal gland and take out the heavy metals. And let's start kickstarting our health.
Yes, absolutely. So this is something that isn't hit on a lot, and a lot of people don't know what the limbic system is. There's something called the HPA axis. It's the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal glands. So the adrenal glands are responsible for cortisol and serotonin balance. So if you have a high cortisol, serotonin comes in and kind of lowers it. If you don't know, cortisol is the flight for life. It gets your adrenal up. That's why it stimulates in the adrenal glands. So if you're in danger or anything like that, it gives you a surge of energy, strength. Sometimes, like if you're being attacked by somebody, your cortisol will up and you can do things you normally wouldn't do. It also regulates the balance of magnesium. Oh, I forgot the other one. Magnesium, potassium, and sodium. So those three are really, they have to be balanced within the adrenals. And so if you're trying, that's why the sea salts are amazing, because it gives your body what it needs. So if you're taking a lot of magnesium, you're going to throw off your potassium and sodium levels. So there's a balance there. So they really need to be done synergistically together. Another part of the brain is called the, and I am really bad at saying this, and I misspelled it. Thank you. Amygdala, and I misspelled it. There's no E right there. It's an efficient communicator, contributing, perceiving, processing, and relaying information between the prefrontal and temporal lobes in the hypothalamus. So this all comes together in the brain. It acts as a manager, assigning emotions like fear, anger, and environmental stimuli, and triggering the fight or flight response. That's the cortisol response. The amygdala. Thank you.
Amygdala. You're welcome.
Thank you. Tell your hypothalamus to communicate with your automatic nervous system, which is really important. That's your how do you explain it? It's your, not original, but it's your automatically controlled nervous system. There you go. Thank you. You don't have to think about it. It's just what your body naturally does. And it releases the stress hormones. So there's, that is a really good article you can look up there. That was phenomenal on that. It also tells the hypothalamus to communicate with, and it begins the release of those hormones and is responsible for the physiological changes associated with flight, panic, and anxiety. Your heart racing and quickening and everything. So the reason we wanted to put this in here is, how do I say it? So a lot of the times with depression, not only do people not know what's going on in their body and why it's happening, but depending on what's happening in the body will tell you what part of the body is being affected in the brain. if that makes sense. So with things like PTSD, panic disorder, addiction, mood disorder, Alzheimer's, those are correlated to the, say it again, Jill.
Amygdala.
Thank you.
Can we add something in that? Because I want to say medulla oblongata, just so I can act like Bobby Boucher.
I was about to say that. I think it's Waterboy.
It's the reason the alligators are mean. They don't have a medulla oblongata. But your amygdala, I want to hit on a couple things. So keep going and finish what you're saying, because I'm going to have fun with this. You did amazing on this.
Oh, well, thank you. So I was just going to say that it kind of helps you regulate what part of the brain might be of the hypothalamus, the HPA axis might be being affected, depending on how your depression or anxiety, if you're panicky, if you're fright, and again, we're not here to mitigate, treat disease or anything, but this gives you information that you can then start to understand what might be going on and how you can target your body for healing, because the first stage of healing is knowing what's going on so that you can communicate to yourself, that you understand, so you can acknowledge it whenever it happens, so you know how to respond and start to change that mindset.
And G.I. Joe said knowing is half the battle.
Yes, that's what I was trying to think of. Yes, go ahead.
So when you I want to hit on the autonomic nervous system a little bit, if I can go back, and I just want to say amygdala a couple more times, just because it's such an amazing word we don't get to use in our language very much. Like,
I can't say it.
Oh yes, you can. You just had one typographical error, so it screws up everything. Amygdala would be if there was multiple. You're like, it's kind of like saying meese when you have multiple mice running around. You're like, the meese are running around, and kids like, what? Who? Where?
Yep.
But your autonomic nervous system controls two things. You have the sympathetic and parasympathetic, right? So you have the fight or flight response, which is your sympathetic, and you have the rest and relaxation. You can say the digestion, sleep, relaxation part, which is your parasympathetic. These are two systems that are completely controlled automatically. That's why it's autonomic, right? But they can be controlled through intention with elite training. This is why you see elite athletes. You can see swimmers, divers, Navy SEALs, elite military professionals. They're trained in how to control their autonomic nervous system, right? How to be cool under pressure. You know, if you have people that are shooting at your head multiple times, usually you're going to freak out, but the ability to just remain calm is something that is kind of crucial, right? And there's very few people that become that well trained in it. And one of the keys is having that balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic. Most people right now are sympathetic dominant, meaning your fight or flight response is going nuts. And why is this? It's all the stuff that we hit on prior. It's environmental. It's cortisol, as you can see on the, initially with what Shanna was talking about. So stress causes so many issues. But here's what's really, really fun, and we'll probably provide a couple of links to the YouTube videos that explain this with Dr. Stefan Rouse, who just happens to be a PhD scientist, immunologist, virologist, researcher that has actually done case studies looking at the Trinity and how you can not take them over a prolonged period of time. I'm not talking about weeks or months. We're talking minutes. You can take a couple capsules of Zero in, a few drops of Clean Slate, and a sachet of Restore, in literally minutes, watch your heart rate variability, your entire system shift and adjust, that you biologically become younger, that your sleep patterns improve, that your cognitive function improves, that everything starts to shift. So this is not just talk of saying, hey, if you do these things, it's really cool. No. Physics has proven that if you do the things that we're mentioning here, these little drops and a couple capsules, and that your entire system adjusts in a matter of minutes. Your autonomic nervous system adjusts. These are things you can't control, pretty easily, let alone in a matter of minutes. And I'll give you one great example. We have an amazing nonprofit organization that we're starting to work with called Engage Your Destiny, that is doing work with all types of military veterans. And there's a major campaign we're doing with Vietnam veterans. And the founder, I'll give Ben Peterson some props right now. Ben's an eight-year Iraq war veteran. Tried to kill himself a couple times. But because of the stress and everything that he endured afterwards, what he saw, what he's lived through. But the epiphany that he had is that he was supposed to do something to give back, and God put him in front of a plan to bring all these veterans, Vietnam veterans, into one place where they can do a welcome home, which is something that we're doing at Daytona, at the Daytona 500 next year, which is going to be absolutely amazing. But when we were introduced, I'm like, we can solve some of this. I'm like, Ben, I want you to try some things for me. So I gave him some of the Trinity to test out. And he wears a Whoop bracelet, right? So if you've heard of Whoop or you've heard of Aura Ring, they do heart rate variability. And they measure your sleep patterns. This is something that's become extremely popular for people measuring heart rate variability to look at your sleep patterns. Well, what's really interesting is it's one thing to measure it. It's another thing to adjust it and change it. So he's been wearing an Aura Ring or a Whoop bracelet for years. We put him on a little bit of the Trinity for a couple of days. He called me. I called him after the first week. I'm like, how you doing? He's like, I'm sleeping better than I have in my entire life. And I feel better now than I can ever remember. And all of my heart rate variability analysis, because it records all of that, is better now than it's ever been before. So is that better? The data doesn't lie. And that's the important part to understand is all of these components. And when Shanna's touching on PTSD and PD and addiction and mood disorders and Alzheimer's, here's a little secret, because they did such a good job with the disclaimer of we're not treating diseases. If you've ever watched The Matrix and they say that there is no spoon, understand that the construct of these statements to be a diagnosis don't really exist. It's just a title that you were given.
Yep. And
if you do a couple things to clean up the mess and put your biochemistry back in place, they won't exist again. Yep. It's not a matter of treating or curing anything. It's about creating greatness and allowing your body to be what we are meant to be. And that's really what she's hitting on. And then you can tweak your amygdala. So, okay, I'm done.
I like it. I'm still not going to try to say it. We also have here that some medical conditions, and this is a government study, that some medical conditions such as viruses and other thyroid disorders can cause the same depression symptoms.
That's really important to know. Throw in mold and fungus into that as well, because
we're getting there.
So crucial right now. Mold and fungus to go along with that, which both of you are very, very, very familiar with and are great to talk to about it. So if those things are something that you have a question about, reach out to these two ladies because they know what they're talking about. They bring me for entertainment.
The entertainment.
We do have a mold talk.
Yes, we do. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Which we did talk about fungus as well. So
yes, we did, because and we are going to get into that because that's I think on the next slide maybe. This is continuing the limbic system, emotional toxicity. So, and that's why a lot of people are going to have a hard time right now bringing in the holidays right now. The limbic system is part of the brain, and it's associated with emotional behavioral responses. It regulates mood, hunger, and sex drive, which your libido, which we saw with serotonin, helps with the libido. Joe, I'm going to have you read that because it has the word again.
The amygdala.
Thank you. Why don't you read it? Because you're better at reading than I am.
No problem. So the amygdala is responsible for coping with fear and danger as it scans for potential threats. When the threat is detected, it prepares the body to respond, triggering your fight or flight. So that's, have you ever seen people be able to pick up a car or run from a bear or just all out fight? The hippocampus helps with memory and emotional processing. This part of the brain supports coding, new associations by linking smells. Oh yeah, smells and sounds to memories. Oh, that's such a good point. Yes. The hippocampus is consistently involved in absorbing, learning, integrating new information. We have millions of associations that we unconsciously pair together. The hippocampus helps to keep them sorted out. Has anybody ever walked into like somebody else's house, and then they go, "Oh, it smells like my grandmother's house," or you know, like you walk into a store and you're like, "What's that smell? That smell reminds me of something."
Yep.
Okay. The thalamus acts as a critical communicator within the brain. It receives and transfers key information and tells the rest of the body what to do next. It's also responsible for functions like sleep, wakefulness, alertness, supports homeostasis. Everybody has a set threshold for systems like hunger, body temperature, and fatigue. The hypothalamus keeps the equilibrium and sends messages to the other parts of the brain to support these regulations. The amygdala can interpret abusive relationships as scary, but a lot of people ignore its signals. We really have to teach people to learn to listen to their body.
Yes.
Listen to their mind, trust their intuition, be intuitive when it comes to healing, when it comes to their emotions, everything.
Yeah.
This can make the amygdala over hypervigilant when interacting with other relationships in the future, or making one unresponsive altogether, which is what helps to explain repeating abusive relationships happen. The hippocampus can create toxic associations like, I can't live without you, you complimented me, what is the motive? Because these feel so true, they can create unhealthy foundations to future relationships. The brain is interested in self-protection, which is what it needs to do to try to avoid more danger.
Right.
So, for example, people with a narcissistic personality disorder have reduced gray matter volume in areas of the brain related to empathy, preventing them from forming an emotional or limbic bond with others.
Yeah. So this is really important because emotional toxicity, I know we've talked about it before, to how negative, your heavy metals in your body are positively charged, your emotions, negative emotions are negatively charged, and they hold on to each other. So whenever you are detoxing and removing those positive charge heavy metals, it takes the negative emotions with it, so you can have uprising emotions, but you also need to understand how it works in your brain and how these emotional toxicities and relationships and what's going on, especially at this time of the year, because we're going to get on to triggers and how this is triggered with other stimuli that you can do, especially this time of the year. How they work together in the brain, so you understand what's going on, and that it acts very much like an addictive, an addiction in the body, with emotional toxicity with the relationship. So if you are a type of person that gets really down at this time of the year, you have relationship troubles, or you've gone through a breakup, or your spouse or something, and things have happened, whatever it is, this is just really important that you can go through the video, you can take this, you can do some research, you can spend some time on it to kind of help your body cope with what's going on, like we said before, because knowing is half the battle. Now you know what's going on, what part of your brain is being affected, so that you can try to start reversing the process, I guess is the best way to put it.
It's good to identify what's going on, identify your triggers, identify what in your past has created emotional toxicity. It's very helpful in moving forward.
Exactly. Very good. So this is just how some toxicity is linked to depression. I really want to get on to the next one, so we'll just go through this really quick. Not enough sleep. Research shows that additives like aspartame and MSG alter the balance between neurotransmitters in the brain, which contribute to depression. So what you are eating, and that's what we're going to get to, is huge, especially right now, this time of the year. Aspartame collects in the cells and causes DNA damage because of how your cells synthesize the DNA. So whenever you have your amino acids or your protein that go into proteins that create the DNA structure, they can actually be deformed whenever you eat certain things, which causes your DNA to be damaged. Artificial sweeteners, all of those can easily be cannot easily be digested by the human body, so it wreaks havoc on it. So it really messes with your digestion. It helps cause leaky gut. Let's see. Artificial sweeteners can confuse your hormones and change the body's microbiome, which is very important. It causes inflammation, which is one of the most severe risk factors for depression. So if you are suffering with depression, you have high inflammation in the gut, which translates into the brain.
Right.
High inflammation causes a disruption in neuroreceptors, increasing the likelihood of depression. Sugar. So this is why it's so important. Okay, right now, guys, because this is I know everybody calls it the flu season, but it's really the sugar season. Sugar affects the brain by creating inflammation, derailing hormones, starving the brain, and damaging important structures of the body, such as the cell membranes and the blood vessels. So please, as you go into the holidays, really pay attention to what you're eating and the amount of it that you're eating. Lead toxicity. So low levels of lead toxicity continuously done has been highly associated with depression and SAD as well. Mold toxicity and the
amygdala.
And the limbic dysfunction. I will eventually be able to say it. So that's a really good study that you guys can look up too, because mold toxicity, actually the mold spores, because we've talked before, and if you haven't watched it before, we've talked before on how epigenetics with mold and how mold can actually change the gene expression of your body. Mold toxicity actually easily goes into the brain and creates havoc in the brain. So that's a lot of what Clayton was talking about before. So we had before, we saw arsenic, we saw mercury, we have lead, we have mold toxicity. These are really, really important factors to understand depression, because depression is just the name of toxicity that was given. All right, so this is just an example of common triggers. So normal fruits and vegetables contain neurotoxins that affect mental health. They disrupt the microbiome, the production of amino acids like tryptophan, which we talked about earlier, absorption of minerals, detoxification of the liver, pesticides, which is like glyphosate. They disrupt the good gut bacteria. I'm not going to read. This is just, I would like for you guys to come back and you can read this later. This was just an example of some common triggers that we have right now. So you can read back.
I'm going to say for all of your moms on there, that was about, you need to come back and read about apple juice.
Yes. Oh, should I go back just really quick?
No, that's okay.
No.
The moms need to come back and read about a lot of the fruit juices, because we think that we're giving our kids something healthy and we're really not.
No. So yes, definitely.
It's arsenic. So just come back. If you're a mom, come back and read the apple juice one.
There you go. Yep. Gluten as well, which I know we give gluten a bad name, which a lot of it is, but it's really glyphosate and it's a GMO. A lot of gluten is GMO, so your body doesn't know what to do with it. So it creates stickiness within the gut. It creates inflammation, irritability of the microbes, as well as the intestinal tissue. It's a large reason why people have a lot of leaky gut and everything. So you can come back and read through this as well. Vegetable oils. So if you're frying things, please pay attention to that. So you can come back and
so no vegetable oil, no canola oil. Please switch over to avocado, coconut, grass-fed butter. Those are all healthy for the body.
Yep.
Yeah, no vegetable or canola.
Right.
Protect your family while you're cooking for them. You know, it's all made with love, right? But make sure that you're making it with the ingredients.
Right.
So we're going to get to some solutions, because we want to sort of wrap up. We're in the last 5 minutes. So the goal is to be you, but to be better, only better, right? I thank Clayton for that sentence. Be you, only better. He said it in one of his meetings the other day, and I literally wrote it down. Like, I'm writing that down. That's great. So challenge yourself to know your body's biochemistry is a factor in the way that your body is functioning. Words matter. So instead of saying I'm depressed, try thinking, what does my body need? What can I give my body today? That's a game changer. When you wake up in the morning, or you're in the middle of the day and your day is not going well, I don't care if you go sit in the bathroom. What does my body need? What can I give to my body? Everything you eat, everything you drink, everything you do, everything you think matters to your health.
Yep.
Provide the body with natural dopamine and serotonin boosters. We're going to get to that. Remove toxins that prevent your system from working properly, and support the body's digestive system, because we did talk about how the brain, the gut, and the heart all work together. Feed the gut what it needs to function properly and then be able to heal itself. And this is where neurotransmitters are made. So that's why the gut, the brain, and the heart are all connected.
Perfect.
So you might be asking, how do you accomplish all of those? So we're going to start with the one that's most important for the holiday season, and that is zero in. And if we don't get through each and every one of these in the next 5 minutes, you can come back and look at these too. But these are the ingredients in zero in, and this is why they are so important. So, and these are just little tidbits. If you look up each one of these and you really start to read about it, and you really start to understand how each of these ingredients must have been picked very specifically, very carefully, and put together in a very specific recipe formulation. There's a reason for it. Dr. Christina did that. So theanine and tyrosine are precursors to dopamine, and they're neuroprotective. Velvet bean seed is adaptogenic, neuroprotective. It is the precursor of dopamine, L-DOPA. Pine bark extract is, there's a word I can't say. I can't. Anyway,
no gentle. Okay.
You talking about pycnogenol?
Yeah, that's it. There you go. Thank you.
Hey, say it with me. Pycnogenol.
Pycnogenol. That's kind of fun to say.
So I envision words in my head. So I'm sitting here envisioning. You don't want to know. Okay. Improvements in attention, memory, mood, and anxiety levels. Turmeric, which in zero in and restore is 95% pure curcuminoids. They're antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, anti-acidogenic, which is the acid in your body, anti-cancer, neuroprotective, and dopaminergic. That one I made. My son was listening to me last night. I was looking that one up, how to say it.
Dopaminergic.
Yes, dopaminergic. Okay. Vitamin D and anhydrous caffeine. And Clayton, I'm going to have you pop in on this because yet another famous question we get all the time. It's made from leaves and seeds, and is a catalyst for natural stimulants such as dopamine. Can you please explain to everybody who pops in and says, I can't take that because it has caffeine?
Caffeine can be good. Just depends on the source, right? So anhydrous caffeine is an extract of the leaf. And what's really, it's hard to explain really quickly, right? Because you have to understand biochemistry for one, but you have different components of different plants that have different benefits and different mechanisms of action. So you have coffee and caffeine that comes from the coffee bean that people are very familiar with, and it's a stimulant. Anhydrous caffeine, which is basically dehydrated caffeine, but it's an extract of the leaf, actually has different properties and different mechanisms of action. But when you think of a stimulant, right, what is a stimulant? A stimulant can be a catalyst, right? So that can be used in chemical reactions as well as the chemical reaction of the body using it as a stimulant if combined and used properly. But what makes anhydrous caffeine really special is anhydrous caffeine is proven to be a dopamine agonist or a dopamine catalyst. It's also proven to be a dopamine buffer, meaning that if you use it properly, it will inhibit your body from producing too much dopamine.
Very important.
Unlike things like drugs of cocaine and heroin that just have no limit to the amount of dopamine that they produce for about 30 minutes, and then you crash and then you're in trouble. So you have this amazing dopamine agonist, but when you combine anhydrous caffeine with some vitamin D and tyrosine and theanine and mecunopurians and pine bark and pure curcuminoids, that vitamin D and anhydrous caffeine work as catalysts, right? They work as a stimulant to create the chemical reaction of those other ingredients working in your gut to start producing more dopamine and serotonin. And we've proven this going back to heart rate variability analysis of using 2 capsules of zero in, which is 200 milligrams of anhydrous caffeine. Taking that immediately doesn't change your heart rate. Taking 2 cups of coffee at one time is going to change your heart rate. But you know what does change? Your heart rate variability. How your heart and your cardiovascular system, your autonomic nervous system functions, that changes Your heart rate doesn't. It doesn't act as a stimulant. We've proven that over and over and over again. So if you're sensitive to caffeine, this is not something that you have an issue with. But what's interesting is the increase in dopamine and serotonin. If you're one that is naturally on edge, you might feel edgy because it's your intention, and you have to change your mindset. That's the key, because your intention, your mind, controls the entire process.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Excellent. Thank you very much. And it is whenever you have to go, Clayton, we know you have to go.
I'm going to pop off here. I know Dory's going to send me a message in just a second and say, where are you?
It probably already is. Okay, so it works synergistically together to balance mood, keep calm, increase alertness, mental focus, and clarity. So it's really important to know that if you are going to be with family over the holidays and that's a stressful situation, or if getting your house ready and the food ready and everything is very stressful to you. I mean, imagine being, you're a mom, you've got a husband, you've got your kids running around and you're trying to cook and everybody's making a mess in the house that you just cleaned up. It's very stressful. So Zero In can help you get through that all naturally. And we do have a YouTube on addiction. And I know that is a big thing that can come up at family functions. So on the Root Brand YouTube, if you want to have that in your back pocket and you think that might help somebody in your family, please pass that along. Okay, we'll finish up. We only have a couple of slides and then you guys will get to Dr. Dory before she's done reading her disclaimer, I promise. Okay, so clean slate, and I'm going to just do this very briefly because we go through this almost every time, is made from 97% pure clinoptonolite, 3% bentonite clay. Dr. Christina unlocked the bioavailable silica. So this is what you're going to need for detoxing arsenic, mercury, glyphosate, graphene, mold, yeast, fungus. This is your detox product. Lead, yes, absolutely. Okay, and then go to the next. Okay, and restore. So this is, oh, you can't hear me?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, now I can.
Okay, great. So what we're describing is the Trinity. So Zero In, clean slate, and restore, if you're new here, is called the Trinity. The three together, known as the Trinity. So restore supports the body, the immune system. It's bioavailable throughout the day. It energizes the cell. It rids the body of heavy metals. It supports the digestive system. It's anti-parasitic, antimicrobial, antiviral, antifungal. It has turmeric, which we went over. Black seed oil increases tryptophan and serotonin levels in the brain. It's shown to promote anti-anxiety effects. Resveratrol increases the body's neurotransmitters and protects the brain. So when Dr. Christina put these three products out and she put them out together, formulated to work the best together, these are why she picked all of these ingredients. Restore has many more ingredients in it than that. I just picked the top three and we went with it. The rest of the ingredients are really good for digestive system, which we have gone over, that the brain and the digestive system have an interaction to them. Okay. And I think, is that it?
I think so.
Yeah. So if this information has helped you and you're ready to get started on the Trinity, that's Zero In, clean slate, and restore. If you want to comment below in the comments, we'll get you hooked up with your support person. Somebody brought you to this group because they cared enough about you to bring you here, to help you learn what's going on in your body, to help you support your body, protect your body, and have amazing health. So we will connect you with that person, and then you'll need a referral code on the Root website. So we can get that for you. And as always, we are thankful that you guys are here. Please invite anybody that you care about, that you think this information will help, to any of our lives, to the Detox Girls community on Facebook, and tag them in this video. We're so excited that everybody was here. I hope all of this information was really helpful. And
bye, everybody.